Come, young Cedric, it is not for us to question good Lady Tenderhook's culinary vision. Odious though these frozen beasts may seem, choice cutlets of their flesh have not crossed the banqueting table in an age. What a magisterial spread we might lay before his radiant majesty. Now cease thy churlish complaints, and come hand me a hatchet.
Everything competes for dominance in Gur. Even the continents themselves possess the sentience to wage territorial war. Starving gulches swallow the mountains above and belch up fountains of rock. Rivers punch ever-changing paths through the earth. The landmasses grind at each other's tectonic boundaries in a constant struggle for supremacy. Yet not every hunter favors an aggressive attack. It is in Bjorl that a shard of the Everwinter gestates, having claimed the abyss known as the Death Gorge as its frigid cradle. These frozen lands creep insidiously onwards, extending chill fingers under the crust of neighboring Andtor, spreading like an unstoppable poison. This curse of sentient cold spreads through Gur's underbelly, and if it is not stopped, it may transform the realm of beasts forever. The Everwinter cares not for those that stand in its way. Glaciers fold around warriors foolish enough to plunder the Death Gorge's treasures. Warbands are dropping into rime-laden caverns by restless quakes, only to drown in the underground rivers as black and cold as night. Corpses hang suspended within the eyes, their souls trapped within these frigid pillars. Perhaps most wretched of all are the rime-worms, native denizens of the Death Gorge, transformed into monsters whose veins run cold with liquid eyes. As descendants of the worm-like god-beast Fangathrak, their divine constitution keeps them alive, even as the Everwinter freezes them from the inside out, keeping them in a constant state of agony. With each passing season, jaws of eyes yawn open in the Death Gorge's deepest recesses, and a new generation of rimeworm eggs begin to crack. Those braving their hatcheries in the hope of plucking discarded treasures from their prey often die in their turn, gnawed to death or frozen into the walls with their trapped souls glimmering faintly around them. These chasms are known as the Wintermaw, a warning of the bitter cold's voracity. Into these glacial depths descend all manner of warbands and champions. Some seek treasures that lie in the pitiless grip of eyes, torn from the bodies of the rimeworm's prey. Some serve higher purposes, whether malignant or benign, even should it lead them into direst peril. Some fight simply because it is all they know. Few return alive, for only by feeding can the rimeworms escape the hateful cold, and warriors are the perfect prey. The Death Gorge is ever-changing. Burrowing abominations widen its deepest chambers and carve new passageways day by day. A curse of frost permeates every inch of these bronchial paths to pool in the gorge's deepest point, saturating the great eggs that slumber there. When questing warbands first descended into the Death Gorge, many underestimated the danger posed by the Everwinter. Seasoned warriors wrapped themselves in cloaks and furs to ward off the cold, only to find their bodies turned to ice from the inside out. The Everwinter is a bitter thing, composed of ancient magic rather than any climactic phenomenon. It took root deep within the Death Gorge, sending frost shuddering through the chasm and encasing the souls of the Aurochs and Gargants that once lived there, as well as any intruders who perished within, behind layers of ice. It was the ability of this arcane cold to freeze the very essence of the spirit before it could escape to the underworlds that granted the Death Gorge its infamy. Here was a prize that any who dabbled in matters arcane might be keen to claim. Not every intruder came to Death Gorge chasing tales of ice-trapped souls, however. For some it was a matter of pragmatism. Upon the surface of Bjall, daggers of frost lacerate any scrap of flesh in moments. Seeking shelter, however treacherous, can appear wise. By the time the nature of the labyrinth into which one descends is realized, it is no easy feat to escape. Others desired to uncover the secrets of the Everwinter, whether their aim was to exploit the phenomena for nefarious purposes or contain its power and impede any who would draw upon it. These warbands found themselves drawn into desperate struggles, both against the elements and one another. With so many trespassers fighting throughout the Death Gorge, the Everwinter that has made this place its lair is responding in kind. Earthquakes rack the Death Gorge constantly, opening deep subterranean crevices filled with bitter air that chokes the airways of its victims. Frozen rivers lie in wait for interlopers, cracking underfoot and sweeping victims away to a watery demise. Icy stalactite fangs detach themselves from cavern ceilings to spear those passing below. Many claim the Death Gorge to be the jutting mouth of some colossal frost spirit, leading the bitter depths beyond to collectively become known as the Wintermaw. Few that descends into the Wintermaw are ever seen again. Those accounts that do surface smack of legend more than any real place. They speak of sheer glaciers that pulse with the glow of trapped souls and ancient magics, and reservoirs so bitingly cold that their rising mists instantly freeze all who touch them. Tunnels undulate and retch like the throat of some choking gargantuan beast. Tendrils of frigid magic drift through eerily silent tunnels wrought from eyes, agitated by the era of the beast's frantic heartbeat. It is these gasps of swirling magic that now soak into clutches of mysterious eggs within the Wintermaw's cradle. Each contains the infant spawn of rime-worms, hideous burrowing creatures that are encrusted with frost, tortured by the ice in their veins and cursed with a near-immortal constitution that prevents their misery from ever ending. A pack of these juvenile horrors can quickly tear a warband to pieces, driven by pure instinct to consume living flesh to heat their frostbitten guts. Rime-worms were not always cursed creatures of frost. They originally dwelt just below Gur's surface, hot-blooded burrowing beasts that tore at the land in ceaseless rampages. Those great worms that once called the Death Gorge their hunting grounds fell prey to the Everwinter's curse, trapping them in their existences of living torture. Though liquid ice burns in their veins and eats away at their flesh and spines, they are unable to die, for they are the descendants of the god-beast Fangathrak, a monstrous deity said to be so large it could swallow a stormkeep in a single gulp. This legendary creature is said to contain a realm gate to the chaos-tainted 8 points in its craw. Its constitution so legendary that it can persist even with the constant corruptive energies coursing within its body. When they hit adulthood, all rime-worms burrow north. Some believe they are heading towards the crawling pits of Garanthia, where Fangathrak remains bound in greenskin territory. Though many warbands dive into Wintermaw for their own interests, some have descended for the express purpose of trying to stop this migration. For if the Everwinter infects an immortal god-beast, the curse could escape and spread across the entirety of Gur. Across the Wintermaw, pearl-like eggs split into steaming puddles of cryo-fluid. The larvae within are hideously twisted, their circular maws studded with serrated fangs. These creatures navigate the frozen depths below Death Gorge, using their heightened sense of taste and sound, consuming anything that stands in their way. When the footfall of warriors first disturbed the eyes of the Death Gorge, something stirred deep within the Wintermaw. Wet clusters of eggs, some reaching the size of ogres or even gargant skulls, began to crack, their polished pearl-like shells falling away to reveal slick, fleshy bodies with twisted, scuttling limbs. Some daring hunters that claimed these beautiful spheres as prizes found their bounty falling apart in their arms, the monstrous contents within sinking dagger-like teeth into their skin and ripping through their arteries. Plundering the Death Gorge did not come without cost, for these were the spawn of the rimeworms, hideous denizens of the valleys, that were cursed with eyes for blood and leathery, frost-bitten hides. Fangathrac's progeny had awakened, and with so many warriors fighting through the gorge, there was plenty of food to be had. Before the great hatching, adult rimeworms were a rare sight. The tortured creatures burrowed indiscriminately, interested only in trying to relieve their constant pain. Those unwary enough to be caught in their path were either encased in eyes, swallowed whole, or smashed to pieces. This was set to change. The Everwinter responded to the invading forces, defiling the Wintermaw's depths with tectonic fury and great bursts of sub-zero winds. Hatcheries hundreds of feet below the ice-laden walls quaked under the stress, their gestating eggs shattering. Countless rimeworm young burst forth in showers of toxic cryofluid, and those caught in the wake of this mass metamorphosis were instantly frozen to the bone or consumed entirely. Juvenile rimeworms are driven by an instinctual need to relieve the pain caused by the curse of their ice-encrusted bodies by devouring the flesh of the living. Born with vestigial limbs that remain until they build enough strength to burrow, these creatures can leap as high and run as fast as creatures many times their size. Only after they have grown heavy, gorging upon their prey, and possess the strength to burrow through sheer ice, do these limbs freeze and shed, serving as a warning sign for all who draw near. The Wintermaw is one of the most dangerous places in Death Gorge. It marks the deepest point of the valley's expansive tunnels and consists of vast underground sinkholes and caves choked with cryonic vapor. Many appear empty at first glance, littered with eggshells and piles of shed limbs. Intruders that dismiss these warnings are quickly torn apart by hungering worms lurking in the shadows. For those that survive long enough, however, these chasms are wellsprings of possibility. The lost relics of the defeated lie temptingly behind glacial walls alongside those of an age long gone. Hatcheries are not the only caves that make up the Wintermaw. Underground gulches, so deep that they seem to lead directly into Gur's heart, divide these glacial lakes and caves. Gargantuan shapes, the colors of pale flesh, writhe within them, accompanied by 1,000 gnashing teeth and the sound of creaking flows. These are the mother rimeworms, eldritch beings of incomprehensible size, whose breath turns flesh to ice. While a pack of rimeworm spawn can rip through a warrior in minutes, A mother rhineworm can consume an entire warband in seconds, or drive them mad with its pulsating fang-line visage. These creatures bore deeper into the depths of the Wintermaw by the day, creating new reservoirs and rivers that tumble into waterfalls in the abyssal darkness. So few have survived confrontation with these beasts that every description is markedly different, making it near impossible to prepare for an encounter. Even this scant information is enough to worry the free cities within Thondia and Galad, for if the mother rhineworms tunnel under their continental boundaries, there would be little the people could do to prevent the utter annihilation of their homes in the face of such tectonic disturbance. Gur is a realm constantly in motion, its continents buckling and snapping at one another in their predatory hunger. In the depths of the Wintermaw, however, the cold is so intense that even the passage of time can seem to freeze. So might the incautious seeker risk disturbing powers both terrible and primeval. Widespread legends of the Everwinter's soul-trapping capabilities led hunters to plumb the chasm's depths in search of preserved aether stuff, as well as other secrets that lay within the eyes. As these delvers bored into the walls and hunted down their opponents, taking them lower and lower into the Death Gorge's cavernous innards, they made bizarre discoveries. Streaks of amber hardened against the rough-cut walls, charged with natural Gurish magics, and yet resembling nothing else that had been encountered within the chasm. Even for those who had no interest in or capacity for prizing free the souls trapped within the Death Gorge, this was a remarkable discovery. Many assumed they had uncovered some permutation of Amberbone, the realm stone of Gur. Perhaps it had once been liquid, yet had solidified when brought into contact with the Everwinter. Whatever the truth, shippings of the substance would no doubt be of interest to wizards and thaumaturgs of many disciplines. So did they pursue it, even as the tunnels arched downwards towards the frost-bitten abyss of Wintermaw. There, in the glittering caverns and hatcheries that stretched as far as the eye could discern, they were faced with sights that tapped into primal terrors. Beneath walls and sheets of translucent rime frost, monsters could be seen, ancient leviathans trapped in the Everwinter's grasp. Many were rhineworms of colossal scale, but others were lizards with great tusks and horns of ivory, or far stranger beasts that lurked in the darkness beneath the realms. Now their remains were trapped in the deepest recesses of the Wintermaw, congregated around clusters of pulsing souls, ancient rime-blocked treasures, and vast accumulations of the mystical amber. Such sights were enough to stoke avarice in even the most frost-bitten of intruders, who soon set to shipping through the ice sheets and liberating the treasures, both mystical and mundane, from the monstrous graves. Amongst these brave or foolish souls, however, were some who viewed the discovery of these monumental masses of amber in disquiet, viewing them not as a curious form of realmstone but echoes of Gur's bloody primordial history. Those who recall the tales of the god-beasts see one evident association: Drakatoa, a giant god-beast made of living liquid amber. The legendary living avalanche was rumored to exist during the Age of Myth, where it mindlessly crossed continents to consume anything in its path within its amorphous, glistening body. Tales describe Drakatoa as powerful enough to swallow even Gorkamorka, the warrior god of the Uruks, and as able to regenerate following even the most catastrophic of injuries. Many of Drakatoa's myths agree that they were a bitter foe of Fangathrak, and that in the depths of prehistory the living avalanche and the moorworm clashed on many occasions. Legends are often exaggerated, and Drakatoa has not been seen in many centuries. Yet the presence of the rhineworm suggests that such a battle may once have occurred in Bjarl, aeons ago. If so, Could slivers of Krakatoa's gelatinous essence have been broken off and come to rest deep in the Wintermaw's frozen heart, preserved against the passage of time? And if this is the case, as warbands recklessly attempting to break through the ice and claim the treasures locked within, what breed of atavistic horror might yet slip free? In the depths of the Wintermaw, old and forgotten menaces lurk, remnants of a time before the rise of mortals. Amongst these perils are fragments of living and liquid amber that languish away in the dark. That is, until an unsuspecting plunderer draws a little too close. Precious few outsiders make it to the Wintermaw's depths. Merely brushing against the wall can freeze mortal solid, provided they are not first swept away by crashing ice flows or consumed by grinding teeth of icy stalagmites and stalactites. Hatchery caverns seethe with roiling, squirming rime spawn, all desperate for their next meal. In these soul-clogged depths, mother rimeworms cause great cave-ins at the slightest movement. When an exhausted few interlopers manage to break through the deepest ice to recover caches of frozen souls or treasures long ago swept into the Wintermaw, their cautiousness is briefly overtaken by joyous relief. That is when the monster strikes. When the ice of the Wintermaw's deepest crevices splinters and cracks, whether from natural processes or the actions of callous treasure hunters, fragments of living amber are roused from their centuries-long hibernation within the walls and glaciers. Wriggling free into the frosty darkness, these slivers accumulate until they attain a measure of primitive consciousness, and in the rime-crusted hellscape of the Wintermaw, the resulting organism is driven to claim warmth or magical energy to sustain itself. Its pulsating, sludge-like form trickles through the unseen crannies of the ice caves, only to suddenly lurch forth and latch onto those who stagger past. Though the protoplasm does not speak, its victims whisper a litany of names for it as they die: the Bane of Heroes, the hungering parasite, and many more. This sap-like parasite is entirely gelatinous, its core beating with a primal gold-amber glow. It possesses enough strength to hurl itself to distant surfaces. Once it makes contact with skin, bone, or fur, it will latch itself to the unfortunate victim. Attempting to remove it by force risks destroying the integrity of the host's body. So visceral is its hold. The creature appears to be intelligent enough to recognize strength, for the only hope of removing it is for it to willingly turn its primitive attention and ferocious hunger onto more impressive prey. If one is not found, it will remain attached to its host until every last drop of heat and strength has been drained from them. This assumes that no more immediate fate befalls the unfortunate host. The predations of the rimeworms is perhaps the most pressing peril, for the creatures seem to grow in ferocity at the merest trace of the parasite, especially should it come close to their precious hatcheries. Yet though the entity often spells the demise of those it feeds upon, there are unexpected side effects while parasite and its victim coexist. Until the host has been fully drained, it is important that they are kept alive. As a result, the amber mucus will act as a sentient extension of their body, attacking those that come close by whipping and burning away their skin. It can also directly empower those it is attached to by healing wounds or stoking their strength with divine essence, though this often comes at the cost of an ally, for the parasite is adept at reaching its tendrils to those nearby in an effort to siphon energy into its host. The Bane cares little for whether its hosts are corporeal or ethereal. It is a thing of magic as much as physical matter, allowing it to lash onto nagacious specters or even demons in order to drain their magical essence. Few warriors, no matter their nature, have survived contact with the parasite. Those who have claim that the entity will not stop until every living creature in existence has been drained. So rapacious is its hunger. Yet there are also tales of warriors taking leave of their senses and being consumed with a maddening desire to rejoin with the Bane, haunted by the desire to prove themselves to this manifestation of Gur and its hunger. Corpses sucked dry and abandoned by the Bane of Heroes appear wrinkled and aged beyond their years. Warriors that manage to find a suitable replacement host for the parasite before their vitality runs out, however, can recover their strength with time and rest. Unfortunately, such opportunities to recover one's vitality are scant when trapped within the boreal embrace of the Wintermaw. Though such a fate is the worst nightmare of most warriors, some fighters desperately seeking strength willingly play host to the Bane of Heroes in order to support their allies. After all, with the Wintermaw full of worm swarms, monstrous behemoths and sentient freezing winds, anything that offers a few more days of precious survival may be embraced. There was little Cedric would not do for his king. Despite being no more than a humble butcher's apprentice, he had joined Grisla's noble hunts across the realms and risked his life slaughtering mythic beasts and murderous fiends. He would gladly give his life for the Summer King if the occasion so called. Yet somehow he didn't think his master would want to eat this. The hideous creature's stare remained locked with his, neither daring to make the first move. It wore the armor of the hated storm tyrant Sigmar, yet its breastplate had been torn asunder. In place of metal bulged a mound of amber phlegm. Tendrils dug into the storm mutant's veins, setting them aglow with unnatural light and swelling its muscles to thick trunks. Such a creature was fit only for oblivion. Cedric charged forth, his meat hook and chain swinging in a brilliant arc to connect with the storm mutant's body. It hooked under a pauldron to dig into flesh and blood. The apprentice gave a triumphant war cry, but it was choked off into a gurgle as the creature slid its sword between Cedric's ribs. To his horror, it reached up with its other hands and detached the hook under its skin. A tendril of glistening amber reached up to pool in the injury and burn it shut. Only then did the putrid mutant hiss out with pain. Cedric's hook clattered to the floor. The storm mutant withdrew its sword with a steaming splash of the apprentice's blood. Cedric was held aloft by a thick, gauntleted fist and appraised by wildly searching eyes. It snarled something in its beastly language. Cedric did not understand much of its inhuman grunts, but he did catch one word: stronger. The creature flung Cedric to the floor. It stumbled off into the shadows with hunger in its eyes, leaving Cedric shuddering with pain against the cave wall, but still very much alive. This is me again, chiming in to thank you for watching the video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. All of those things help me out immensely. If you feel so inclined, do consider to become a member to gain a greater influence over the content, early access, and just generally help me out. If you like this particular video especially much, feel free to click the thanks button as well to leave a small donation. All of those things are 100% optional, and I will never keep videos permanently locked behind a paywall, as my main goal is to spread the love for these games as much as possible.
A special thanks to my members, whose legendary names are scrolling right before your eyes at this very instant. Don't forget, the games are not only about winning, but also creating unforgettable memories with your friends and opponents. That's it for me. See you soon. Bye bye.